The deep state marauder. Let's get dialed in. Well, if you've been paying attention, you've probably heard about today's guest. He's a man who's made waves across the country, shaking up the establishment and calling out corruption in ways that make the DC elites very, very uncomfortable. His name is Ivan Raiklin. Ivan's a former Green Beret, a constitutional lawyer, and someone who's been on the front lines, both literally and figuratively, fighting for what he believes in. You've seen him expose everything from election integrity issues to government overreach, and he's done it with one thing in mind: protecting the freedoms this country was founded on. Now, what makes Ivan unique isn't just his military background or his work in law. It's his relentless pursuit of the truth and his willingness to call out the bad actors, no matter how powerful they are. The media doesn't want you to hear his message. Big tech doesn't want you to hear his message. The political class definitely doesn't want you to hear his message. So naturally, we're giving him a platform right here, where the truth always comes first. Ivan joined us right here in the great state of Texas, where he is sounding the alarm on the Twitter files and how Elon Musk moving the headquarters of X, formerly Twitter, from California to Texas has massive implications for our country and the future of freedom itself. Ivan Raiklin isn't afraid to tell it like it is. And frankly, in times like these, we need more of that. So buckle up. This is a conversation you don't want to miss. Ivan, welcome to Texas Talkin. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. I'm in Texas myself, and I want to start out with this. I don't know if you knew this, but from 2016 to 2018, I was in the Texas National Guard, and I commanded the Special Forces Unit at Camp Bullis in San Antonio.
No, I did not know that. I did know, or do know, I should say, that you're a former Green Beret, Army Green Beret. That's not what brought you to prominence. Ivan, I have no doubt at all that what we witnessed in 2020 was in fact a deep state coup d'etat and not a presidential election. You sent out a tweet back then that is now known as the Pence card. If you would, tell our viewers a bit about your background, what that was, and how it plays into what we're going to discuss today.
Oof, that's going to be a long answer, but I'm going to keep it short. So my background, 25 years as a military officer, from Green Beret, intel officer, military diplomat, countering ISIS, Taliban, MS-13, Russian aggression. Along that pathway, I picked up a law degree focused on national security law, constitutional law. And then towards the end of my kind of professional career, before we went into the correction phase of the constitutional disorder that we're facing right now, the last thing that I did full-time was as an instructor at the Defense Intelligence Agency, teaching intelligence analysis to our up-and-coming professional intel analysts as one of the courses that I taught. And then in the reserves, I was a technology scout on the West Coast in Silicon Valley, focused on AI, mixed reality, and gaming companies that would be interested in essentially selling their product and capability into the Army and then the Department of Defense national security enterprise. In summary, I have experience at the highest and deepest levels in Silicon Valley, as well as in the U.S. national security apparatus. Okay? So understanding that, when I observed the illegal activities of our federal government in 2020 with the whole COVID con, with the censorship industrial complex beginning in 2018, basically, with the weaponization against General Flynn by certain individuals at the FBI and above, with, for example, the 2020 COVID con resulting in elections being run unconstitutionally in 39 states,
yes,
6 of which were contested. I took to Twitter in my personal capacity while I was in those two positions to express my First Amendment off duty, not when I was on reserve duty, and not when I was working as a contractor teaching at the Defense Intelligence Agency. The rest of the time, I took it upon myself to say, hey, whoa, yes, I'm an attorney, but I need to exercise my First Amendment on Twitter at the time to go ahead and explain that there are ways constitutionally to go ahead and stop the election heist. You called it the coup d'etat.
Yes.
And it happened at all levels. It happened at the county level in many states, at the state level with non-legislative actors. And then it happened by Mike Pence in December 2020 2020 on December 23rd. And that's what leads me to answer your question about Operation Pence Card. So when you look at the Electoral Count Act and you see the process and flow of how a presidential election takes place, it starts with the legislatures of the states, and then the electors are transmitted to the president of the Senate and the National Archivist. Title III of the United States Code, Section 12, lists that if a state does not transmit its electors by that date, it is the president of the Senate that's supposed to send a memo, a demand letter to the state's secretaries of state saying, hey, send me your slate of electors if you want to be counted on January 6th. And it's set out in the Electoral Count Act, Title III, U.S. Code, Section 12. And so I put together a tweet with a memorandum attached to it called Operation Pence Card. And it was addressed to Mike Pence as the president of the Senate. Hey, buddy, what the states transmitted to you was not constitutionally sound. Now that the ball is in your court, Mike Pence, you are obligated to defend the Constitution's Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2, and to comply with Title 3 of the U.S. Code, Section 12, on that date, December 23rd. Because in the statute, it says the fourth Wednesday of December. If a constitutionally viable slate of electors is not transmitted, then it is the duty, I argued, of the president of the Senate, Mike Pence, to tell the states to fix it. And the three options to fix it were run a new election according to your state's election law, not according to COVID measures, which were set forth by non-legislative actors, but exactly how your election law is set. Option two is to go ahead and, if you want to save money as a state instead of doing a new election, then why don't you go ahead and have a joint session of your state legislature, for example, it would have been in Austin, right? For them to convene and then go ahead and vote on how they would allocate the state's presidential electors under Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2. Or option three would have been for the state to go ahead and say, you know what, we're not going to transmit anything while we investigate what's going on with the underlying illegitimate election. All three viable constitutional options, and all three options did not say that Mike Pence was the unilateral authority to determine how the state would transmit their electors. He was just trying to correct the underlying illegalities. He refused to do anything, and that's where all of his political problems began. You're welcome, America, for me having that opportunity to expose him, but it's unfortunately that he chose that path to expose himself. And so that is the Operation Pence Card. It applies solely to the Electoral Count Act authority under which he was obligated to act on December 23rd of 2020. Notice, December 23rd of 2020 is a different month, day, and year compared to January 6th of 2021.
Yes.
And that is a separate legal strategy that I had provided, separate from Pence Card. And Jackie Boy Smith is the biggest buffoon moron to try to equate my Operation Pence Card to January 6th. If this was not a family-friendly show, I would go out and do a multitude of sentences of expletives to explain how much of a big retard Jackie Boy Smith is to trying to somehow equate my Operation Pence Card tweet with January 6th. And he even included it in the original indictment of Donald Trump in the DC case in paragraph 88.
So you're on Jack Smith. You're on crooked Jack Smith's radar, in other words.
I would say that he is on my radar and he is on my list. Okay. And it didn't have to be this way, Jack. All you had to do was file your case against Donald Trump in a way that didn't mention Operation Pence Card. Then I would have treated you with a little bit more decorum. But because you're a big retard, just like your little beloved Jamie Raskin and Lizzie Cheney and Benny Thompson and your beloved staff director for that fake committee, David Buckley, all of which also complicit retards, they tried to somehow frame the narrative that the tweet that Trump retweeted had something to do with January 6th. I can't use sufficient expletives to explain how low IQ all the people that I just mentioned are.
Well, thanks
David
to
Buckley, Jackie Boy Smith, Jamie Ratskin, Lizzie Cheney, Adam Crybaby Kinzinger, who else? Nancy Pelosi's beloved Benny Thompson, and the rest of that committee. They would not call me in because I would expose every single one of them and their involvement in the January 6th Fedsurrection parliamentary coup.
Well,
For
that's
details on
exactly
that,
what they don't
watch
want.
my 3-hour episode on Alpha Warrior on my Rumble channel.
That's exactly what they don't want, is the truth exposed. And fortunately, because of Elon Musk, you have an opportunity to now have a free speech platform. Curiously, behind you, Ivan, is the shape of the great
Wait,
state of Texas, right
oh,
there, with
we're talking about
Elon
this
Musk's new. Oh yeah,
or this?
with Elon Musk's new X logo. Ivan, what in the world are you doing here in my home state of Texas? Tell us.
Wait, one more. That stands for the company that you previously was called Twitter 1.0. And if you go to my X account, Ivan Raiklin, you will see that I was in San Francisco on Friday for the closing ceremony of
With the big neon sign.
with yes. Well, they took it off
Yeah, I bet
with
they
the
did.
so I was there for to play taps as we shuttered down and closed down Twitter 1.0 headquarters. And it was
And thank
glorious.
God for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Praise
So what are
God.
you doing here in Texas?
And so now that Elon has moved Twitter from California to Texas, it is my solemn duty to explain to every single influencer, content creator that has experienced some level of censorship by Twitter 1.0 and beyond. And it appears as though if you're a conservative and if you're an America First conservative, then you're probably in that category,
Yep,
Shiloh. And so what
absolutely.
I'm in Texas to explain to people like you, and tomorrow with Dinesh D'Souza, and on Tuesday with Roseanne Barr, and on Wednesday with all three on, or maybe four on InfoWars, Alex Jones, Owen Schroyer, Harrison Smith, and Chase Geyser. And then on Thursday over at Glenn Beck at Blaze Media Studios with Alex Stein. And maybe on Fridays with Steven Crowder. And you know what, maybe tomorrow night I may accidentally bump into Joe Rogan. Just saying.
And
Let's just say this.
Ivan has decided to come on Texas Talkin' first on his Texas tour. And for that, Ivan, we're very grateful.
Well, you're the man. I mean, this is grassroots at its finest. You're a leader in your own right. And so I'm trying to explain. Remember, I'm a Green Beret retired, right? Constitutional lawyer. I observe what's going on politically, and I'm trying to formulate a strategy just like I did with Pence card. And now, in this case, what I call the mother of all Twitter files, hashtag MOATF, where I'm trying to articulate to key leaders in Texas, to folks in the vicinity of Ken Paxton, folks in the vicinity of State Senator Brian Hughes, who chairs the State Affairs Committee that has jurisdiction over what I'm about to say, and to key influencers to say, hey, now that Elon Musk and Twitter is in Texas, totally different dynamic. We now have the ability to work with Elon Musk to release the information in Twitter holdings to prove all the censorship that was just admitted to by Mark Zuckerberg over in Fakebook when he admitted to three things. One, he was the one that was the conduit to conduct genocide globally through the promotion of the clot shots, right? Meaning he worked with, he says he was coerced. I don't know if you want to pull it up, that admission letter, but that's really important for people to read if you've missed it.
Yes. Yes.
Number one, he was involved in genocide with the federal government, meaning the Biden administration. Everything related to COVID con and the censorship. So if you have somebody that died in your family as a result of consuming content that convinced you that the product was safe and effective and that resulted in your family member's death, boom, wrongful death claim. Number two, he provided cover for the Biden criminal syndicate laptop. If you were censored and demonetized and had some sort of impact to you because you are a content creator and your truth was censored, boom, there's a potential legal theory to go after a certain individual at Twitter 1.0 that ran the censorship industrial complex on behalf of all of big tech, but he happened to be in Twitter. His name is Jim Baker, the deputy general counsel, who before he was the deputy general counsel at Twitter from 2018 until his firing in 2022 by Elon. From 2014 to 2018, he was the senior lawyer at the FBI, the
Wow.
general counsel who ran and authorized the illegal spying operation on General Flynn, on Carter Page, on George Papadopoulos, on Paul Manafort, and wait
Donald
for it,
Trump.
on Donald Trump.
Yes.
And he was there to perpetuate that and cover it up by being authorizing the Mueller investigation. And then he accidentally moved to Twitter to be the deputy general counsel to run the censorship regime from within Twitter as an embed on behalf of the entire deep state CIA, the 51 spies who lied, who covered for the Biden criminal syndicate laptop. You see how all of this is
Oh, I'm
interconnected?
sure it's all
And
just a coincidence, Ivan.
and you see why I'm the guy that can put this all together, having spent 25 years in the system as an insider, both on the left coast and on the East Coast, to put these two pieces together as I expose Jim Baker at Twitter, and as I expose another guy who's still at the San Francisco field office of the FBI, Joe Pientka III. And guess where he was before he was in that office? He was in DC with Jim Baker.
Wow.
Where? He was running the Crossfire Hurricane op initially as a supervisory special agent. What part of Green Beret, intel officer, constitutional lawyer did you miss, Deep State?
Well, I
Now
think
we're
I think
coming
they're going to get
after
a very
you
good idea of what that
with
means
X.
now, Ivan.
What's that?
I said I think they're going to have a very good idea of exactly what that means now, because
Yeah.
you are going around Texas this week and making sure that those of us here who live in Texas are aware of what's going on. The deep state marauder.
What
And
part of FAFO did they miss?
well,
Apparently they
and
did.
you raise another question, Ivan, which is what should or can average, ordinary, everyday Texans do other than FAFO uh, to bring awareness to this subject and move the ball down the field in terms of holding these scumbags accountable?
All right, let me look at my notes because this is so crucial to answer this specific question. It aligns exactly with a draft Substack that I'm writing specifically to address this question. There are several lines of effort. Texas is about to save the United States Republic. How? Elon releases the mother of all Twitter files, meaning all the communications of Jim Baker, not only his Twitter DMs and emails and internal Slack channel deliberations, but also the company issued cell phone information that he has, the company issued tablet, laptop, computer that he has, and every document that has his fingerprint on it that exposes his running of the censorship industrial complex. That's number one. So if you know Elon Musk or anybody in his ecosystem, Texans, or if you know somebody that works in the new Texas headquarters in what is it, Braestrup? What's the name of the town?
Bastrop.
Bastrop, in Bastrop, or if you know any of the security officials or anybody that works at that site, you might want to let them know to start kind of getting it up the chain of command. Number two, if you know Ken Paxton, guess what? Ken Paxton, while he can't do anything with criminal because that was taken away from him in his office, he can pursue civil sort of litigation on behalf of Texas against Twitter. But in this instance, it's against Twitter 1.0, knowing that Elon Musk is a friendly and is not someone that we're going after. It's literally to sound the alarm to the tune of, you know how they said the British are coming? Who said
Yes.
that?
Paul Revere.
Paul Revere. You can basically say that I'm currently the digital Paul Revere yelling and screaming, hey, this massive opportunity to expose the deep state and have the ability to go after him through Ken Paxton, right? Through and by the way, let me pause on that. Ken Paxton, remember he filed the lawsuit Texas versus Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania?
Yep.
I'm sure he's going to find, if we're able to kind of subpoena through civil litigation of the censorship and to showcase that it was Twitter that coordinated also through Jim Baker the electoral heist of 2020. And that's how they were able to do it through censorship, right? Mark Zuckerberg admitted to it, right? The third thing that he admitted to was not the bribes that he gave, right? Mark Zuckerberg bribed to the tune of 400 million through CTCL, different jurisdictions, to include Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Georgia, of which Ken Paxton filed lawsuits on. I would say he needs to pull off the shelf that lawsuit and then go ahead and take all the Twitter holdings that support the original claim that he had to then refile it and then go ahead and say, hey, the 2020 election was illegitimate. Told you so. And
Now that
Elon has all the evidence.
yes, I was going to say, now that he has access to all of the relevant information.
Exactly. Nuremberg 2.0. Did they censor about the COVID con, about the jabs? Yes, they did. Who
Absolutely,
was
they did. They still do.
Jim Baker was the guy that coordinated that. Let's prove it, right? Number 3, Senator Brian Hughes. You heard of him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So if anybody knows him that would like to facilitate this conversation between me and him, I would be all game for that. But he can basically, or whoever, if you know him, you can let him know that he's on the committee that can maybe put out a public release or put out a subpoena request for Jim Baker, former Twitter employee, or more importantly, all of Jim Baker's communications that X owns in a friendly way, because Elon he's friendly to this cause. Hey, and then make that a hearing where you use your platform as a state senator as you showcase to Texas, the America, and the world of everything that his office now looks through. If he wants to bring me on pro bono in a legal way as an intern, unpaid, to help him sift through exactly what he needs to look through, I am a phone call or a text message away, and I will drop everything that I'm doing to go ahead and facilitate that. Elon Musk, if you want to bring me in pro bono to help your trusted staff, direct them where they should go and specifically identify so that they save their time on where they need to look and uncover, I am all yours. And Ken Paxton, the same offer goes to you. If you need me to park in Austin from now until November 5th, I am willing to do that. As we explain to America and Texas, the entire deep state target list complicity by category using Twitter's own evidence. And I'll say this lastly, the influencers such as yourself, you have a platform. You have people that know all the people that I just mentioned to then get on their radar and say, hey, the demand is now there. As of Friday, Twitter is in Texas. And what's the name of the town?
Bastrop.
And what stops us from creating a statewide demand signal for Elon Musk to have a meeting with Ken Paxton to discuss this?
I suspect that Ken Paxton and Elon Musk, and I can't get into any more specifics, I'm pretty sure that they've had conversations, and I'll just leave it at that. But
what if I were to tell you that that is not the case?
That they've never spoken?
I have on very good authority at the highest levels that has not taken place yet.
Okay. So about this.
Oh. That is why I'm in Texas. In the absence of action, I have to help fill that void.
Well, I'm glad you're helping to facilitate these conversations. We're running out of time, but I do want to ask you about one more thing before we go, and that is, you brought up the deep state. They are absolutely, in my view, hell-bent on keeping President Trump out of the White House. As I'm sure you're now aware, there was another assassination attempt on him today. Share your thoughts with us about that. And I want to ask you a very direct question. Have you ever been fearful, and I hesitate to use that word because you don't strike me as a fearful guy, but have you ever considered that you may be a target?
Yes. So let me answer the first question, the first part. I'm aware in February when I was on Alex Jones, we discussed that when the deep state, when the uniparty, and there's 600 members on my deep state target list. It's been published, right, by category of transgression over the last 6 to 8 years. And those are the same people behind the escalation against Donald Trump, the same people that went after General Flynn from there. I'll say it this way. We forecasted that if they can't stop him from becoming the nominee, at the moment they realize they can't stop him, they're going to try to take him out with an assassination. And that happened 2 days before the RNC convention.
Yes.
Probably to usher in a Nikki Haley and a Ron DeSantis ticket. But that failed. Thankfully, right after the trigger pull is when Donald Trump leans forward and turns his head. In that split second of a time, had he not done that, his head would have been exploded
On live
and completely
TV.
gone. After the trigger pulls when he moved and they missed. Today, the Secret Service knows all of Trump's sites, right? They've been protecting him for years institutionally. So for them to allow a lapse, they could claim, right? Plausibly that Butler, Pennsylvania was an open space. It's new. It's the first time they were there. I don't buy it, but still, like, they could claim it there. But today they can't claim that. This is the Trump property that they have had years of knowledge of a site that they should know how to protect, and there should be a standard operating procedure for the new agents, even if it were new agents, to go through the process of this is what you do to secure this site. They did not do that, which then now puts me in the position of they are guilty until proven innocent, meaning they were complicit in allowing for this to take place. But again, it failed. The second part of your question, when you ask me that question, you are not ready to go to the mat against these people. And I love you because I've seen some of your work. From my perspective, when people ask me that question, it should be, I reframe the question and ask it this way. Have I been the target? Absolutely. When you make me a target, you and your family should be concerned with your safety. Okay? That's how it works. When you trigger my inherent right to self-defense, you're now on notice. So if you don't want someone else asking the question that you asked me, I'm talking about those that are coming after Donald Trump, General Flynn, myself, etc., Elon Musk. You should be concerned with your safety, because if you don't want to be concerned with your safety, then don't illegally come after people like me that follow the rules, that do everything legally, morally, ethically, peacefully, and patriotically. We know our rights. And when you step across and cross our red line, the FO phase comes immediately.
Ivan, where can people go if they want to follow you, if they want to learn more about what you're doing?
Well, I'm in Texas, baby.
And what they can expect to see moving forward?
So you can follow me on X, Ivan Raiklin, Raiklin, if you never
Put it
heard
up
of it.
on the screen.
And then number two, again, I only put content out on the free speech platforms. So primary X, secondary Rumble, and you'll also find me on some of the I'll put some stuff up sometimes on Getter, on Telegram. Telegram, I'm reassessing right now based on what Pavel Durov, the CEO, has put out. But again, primarily those two, X and Rumble, is really where it's at, particularly as a American and trying to correct this constitutional kind of
crisis,
destruction and crisis that's going on. And I'm here to kind of help autocorrect it through my First Amendment. And like I said, earlier on, what's coming ahead, I'm basically, if anybody else that you know of that wants to have me on to explain in more detail and greater detail that's not already on the docket, this is all I'm doing this week. If you're a Texas-based content creator, Texas-based only, I will do 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, whatever we can fit in that suits your timeline. That's all I'm doing to essentially create the beat drum, right, of the Paul Revere, if you will, in the digital landscape, to educate everybody in Texas that this is our moment. As we go tomorrow, early voting starts in Pennsylvania. Can you imagine what's in the Twitter files holdings as it applies to Miss Bookvar, the Secretary of State of Pennsylvania, at the time when they stole the Pennsylvania election with Twitter employees and maybe Jim Baker? Or what about early voting that's coming up in Georgia and Pennsylvania and other states? We need to get this out
on October 21st.
Early voting starts.
Yes.
What's that?
I said early voting begins here in Texas next month, October 21st. So there is time between now and then in many states to get this information out. God bless you for doing this.
Can I say one last thing?
Yes, sir.
The whole purpose of this Twitter files release is to educate the country, to demand that our state legislatures vote on November 5th on how they allocate their presidential electors, because everybody's going to see that there's no time left to run a free and fair and transparent election other than taking it back to Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2, exactly how Mike Pence was told to do so with the Pence card.
And did
We have
nothing.
an opportunity now to do that, and Republican legislatures control 274 electoral votes under this framework. We have a guaranteed Republican reelection when we take that path. And then there's no illegals voting, no voter fraud, no retail wholesale fraud, no digital manipulation, no software, no machines, no foreign interference, no drop boxes, no mail-in ballots, no fraudulent signature verification. It is completely pristine, and it's a guaranteed victory.
This has been exactly what I thought it would be, an insightful, provocative, and very important conversation. Ivan, may God bless you, and may God continue to bless the great state of Texas.
Shiloh.
Stay dialed in to interviews and content just like this by clicking that follow button on my Facebook page, or hit the subscribe button to learn more about exclusive access that you won't want to miss.